Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters, the for Anfield Index even. It's a bit later than normal, which is probably what's throwing me off more than anything, but just under 24 hours post Liverpool's victory in Paris, I think I've only just stopped laughing at the whole situation, the result, how everything unfolded. But here we are to talk about it and many other things. I'm joined as ever by the renowned and the respected David Lynch. I mean, I'll be honest, I just can't stop laughing, David. How is it for you as a journalist that's got to seriously analyse all this?
Yeah, it is quite funny. I mean, it's one of those games, probably not ever funny when it happens to you, and you've seen so many of those down the years. I mean, usually that's kind of relegation fodder in the Premier League, coming up against the top side, and then they just hang in there, and somehow take the one chance. But you're not really used to kind of this happening in Liverpool games, to be honest. I mean, for a long time, they've not been particularly prone to those sort of performances as in receiving them. And I'm really struggling to remember off the top of my head the last time Liverpool themselves ever did this. Just got completely annihilated for 89 minutes and then popped up with the winner. It's so rare. And like I say, I'd love people in the comments maybe to suggest ones where Liverpool have come close to doing this before, because I just can't think of any. So very, very rare circumstances. And yeah, it's almost like the best kind of win, really, isn't it? You're now discovering, because you just feel like you didn't deserve it at all. And I got to the point where it gets late in the match, so I'm writing my tweet or social media post to go out on full time, summing it up, and I was very kind of positive about the fact that they got a goalless draw because they basically hadn't deserved it.
Yeah.
And saying that the upside there is they're taking a goalless draw back to Anfield. They can win it there. They'll probably play better. And then what you actually get is the win and to take an aggregate lead back, where again you think they'll play better in the second leg. It's just absolutely magic for Liverpool, and just as good a result as you could ever get, really. So yeah, really strange one. Can't remember Liverpool doing that before, but it was a massive win.
You maybe have to reach for some of them aside from Alisson, but there are some positives. So we'll try and lift the mood a little bit. I mean, the scoreline obviously takes care of itself, but did you notice and we'll talk about the changes a little bit separately, but just the story of the match? I mean, battered for 45 minutes. How the hell it was 0-0 at half time, I don't think anyone really knew. But the second half, it's not like we took over. They were still on top largely, but there was some improvement, wasn't there?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it kind of went under the radar a little bit, really, in the immediate reaction to the match, that they were much better in the second half. I mean, I put a post out about that, actually. It's kind of saying that I think PSG have 15 shots in that second half, and they only generate 0.41 expected goals from them. So really, really low quality opportunities in that second half. And yes, they're still dominating possession, and Liverpool weren't doing enough in transition to really harm them up until that very last moment. But it was a much improved second half performance in terms of the defensive aspect. And that still meant that Alisson had to pull off a couple of world-class saves, because PSG have got world-class players who can hurt you from shooting outside the box anyway, even if you give them an inch. But it was, the structure was much better. And if both halves had kind of been like that, a 0-0 or Liverpool nicking it wouldn't have felt as much as a robbery. It was just that first half was so one-way traffic, really. But again, tactical tweaks, little changes that the manager made improved Liverpool, and we really saw that in the second half. And I think it was a little bit of kind of Luis Diaz effectively ended up playing left back for most of it, really helped out. But they really contained PSG better in that second half, and Alisson, when he was called upon, delivered the goods.
I mean, talk about delivering the goods. We are going to talk about Alisson very shortly and wax lyrical. There was just a really good comment, or a really good part of the interview with Arne Slot that is just worth playing for you, everyone, about Alisson specifically after the game. Let's just have a listen to this one.
It's our quality that we have Alisson that saves them all.
Just give us some sort of perspective on that performance then from your goalkeepers. And I asked Ibu whether it was the best he'd ever seen from a keeper. Your experience in football is a little greater than Ibu's. What do you think?
Yeah, it was an incredible performance from a goalkeeper that I've managed, but that's quite normal because I'm now managing the best goalkeeper in the world. So then sometimes, if needed, he needs to show as well that he's the best goalkeeper in the world.
I mean, just literally, you think about some of the saves he makes. The one low down Konate, a couple from the free kicks from him as well. Doué, I mean, one-on-ones. I actually can't think of a better goalkeeping performance that I've seen. And someone, again, might correct us in the chat panel, but this was just outstanding, wasn't it?
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, I certainly can't think of obviously watched Liverpool more intently than any other club throughout our lives. And I can't think of a better Liverpool goalkeeping performance than that, really. It was just unbeatable. And it's just every facet of the game, really. I mean, some of them outstanding saves, as you say. I mean, the first half, they were getting into good shooting positions. So big one-on-ones where he's got to be good. He's got to scrap out to get the follow-ups as well. And he's doing really well with that. Just looked kind of unbeatable in that period. And then in the second half, like I said, some of those were long distance strikes, but they were brilliant efforts and they still needed saving. I mean, the strength of the hand on to tip that free kick round the corner, the one from Doué is out of this world, possibly. Well, I was going to say possibly the best, actually, but I think the best for me was maybe the one first half from Kvaratskhelia, which gets a little bit of a nick on it off Konate. So changes the direction a little bit and he still gets there and palms it out. So just a phenomenal performance. And I think what I loved on top of that as well is kind of the claims of really dangerous crosses and the fact that there was some of the moments where the ball, whether it be a cross or whether it be a shot that's taken a nick or anything, they're kind of bouncing right in front of him. And that is so dangerous for a goalkeeper. If he either grasps it or if he can't and he knows that's too risky, getting something on the ball to just completely clear it from the danger zone. And he was getting real clearances on the ball with his arms, which is, incredible strength and just shows how smart a goalkeeper he is as well as a good one. So, I mean, clear man of the match for Liverpool. And, it's been a little bit of a strange season for him, actually, a little bit up and down. But I think yesterday he kind of reminded everybody that he is the best goalkeeper in the world when he's at it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And as Red Armchair supporter said, Courtois would have been proud of that. Better than the Courtois for me in that final that time. And I mean, speaking of goalkeepers, things come down to fine margins. Is the tail of the game ultimately down to Alisson just performs maybe the best ever goalkeeper performance we can recollect, and Donnarumma gets a good hand on Elliott's shot and doesn't keep it out? Is that just the difference between the world's best and very, very good?
Yeah, absolutely. This is it. I mean, we're probably being a little bit harsh on Donnarumma there because it's still a difficult save. It's, fairly close to the corner, but you just expect, and we would expect, because we see Alisson every week in, week out, that if the ball is going there, then the keeper's tipping it around the post. That's just kind of basics to us for what, because we are blessed to watch Alisson. So to see him get something and get down there and not be able to keep it out. And he had nothing to do all game. That is the first shot on target he faced, and he managed to let it in. So, it must be incredibly frustrating. And you just know if that shot had been placed there by any of the PSG attackers, then Alisson he's maybe catching it and keeping hold of it, never mind tipping it around the post, given the form he was in. So, that kind of underlined the difference between the two, really.
Yeah, so starts. And Steve Cody there saying, let's hope we can keep hold of these world-class players for next season. David Substack, we might have to talk about that, Steve, as well as we lead into it later. But I do want to talk about the subs because they had such an impact. But I do just want to play a clip from Harvey Elliott's interview last night because it is right we give him some flowers and talk about him specifically.
There was talks amongst the bench of, just us defending with our lives and, hoping we get one chance. We already knew that it was going to be a really tough game because of the quality that they have, especially here at this stadium. But I think it just showed the resilience of us as a team and as a club, to fight to the very end. And, I think we got our reward in the end.
The manager's just said to us, you have every right to be frustrated. You've not had as many minutes as perhaps you deserve. For you, is it a case of channeling any frustration and saying, I'm going to make every minute I get on the pitch count?
I mean, we've talked about Harvey Elliott and his distinct lack of minutes, and you could see his face told the story itself there. But in his last 3 Champions League games, he scored still on the big occasion when they might need him. He does really offer something, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a brilliant young player, and I think that's why it is frustrating that he hasn't been used as much as, you know, I think not just he would have liked, but I would have liked. I like watching him, and I think he's a big talent who I don't want Liverpool to lose, and I think he does deserve to get on the pitch more. He was unlucky with the timing of his injury that he picked up, obviously, and that really disrupted the start of his season. And then since then, I think he's been a little bit unlucky that, you know, Slot has felt that, look, we've got an opportunity to win the Premier League here. Let's try and get our best 11 on the pitch as frequently as possible. And he's also learning about the league as well. I think he'll have a better idea next season of where he can make those little changes and where a Harvey Elliott would absolutely be okay to come in. So maybe that is part of it. I really like to think that change is going to come because, like you say, you know, he's managed to get those Champions League goals despite barely featuring this season. You know, he's big involved in the Brentford winner, wasn't he? Or winners, if you want to call it that, for the 2-0 win there. And I think generally when he's been on the pitch, he's been really good. So I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of him this season. And I do hope that next season there is a bit of scope for that to happen because he's in an interesting position this summer. 2 years remaining on his contract, barely played this season. You know, I'm not saying that means he's going to leave, but at the very least, there's a big conversation to be had over the summer. Yeah. I'm absolutely fascinated to see how that conversation goes, really. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. And I would hope that there are more minutes for him next season. You know, I'd hope there are more minutes between now and the end of the season, to be honest. But we'll have to see about that. But he's a fantastic young player, still only 21 years old, got all that experience, all that quality. And be a real shame if Liverpool were to kind of lose him because I just think he's easily good enough for this level and he's going to get even better.
And the match winner last night as well. And another player who came off the bench, and I know we've talked about Darwin Nunes at length, so probably contrasting fortunes for what we'd expect in the summer. But in Darwin's defence, would you have expected of all players that late in the game, in a Champions League knockout game, Darwin Nunes to be the most composed, bring it down, and to play that sort of pass? You probably wouldn't have had money on it, would you?
No, but do you know what? It comes back, and I mention this all the time, but we've spoken about it so frequently, and I do think it's the big thing around Darwin is that he's going to go in the summer. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but it's what can you do in the meantime? How big a part can you play in Liverpool getting trophies? Can you be important and helpful? And I mean, it doesn't get better again than what he did last night. Is, you know, the game was crying out for him for ages. I wouldn't have minded seeing him come on even a little earlier because I think Jota was just getting eaten up in those 1v1 physical duels, wasn't he? He's not that sort of player. I think Jota, for me, not, you know, to start one of your tougher away games of the season, it doesn't really suit him. He's a finisher. He's not somebody who gets you up the pitch, and so he was struggling all night, really. And what, you know, football is quite simple. I mean, Darwin Nunes is not as good a footballer as Diogo Jota. He's not as good a finisher. His movement isn't as good, but he has physical qualities and they are worth an awful lot. I mean, you know, it doesn't matter the fact he's not quite as good as Jota when the ball is getting launched by the keeper towards you and he immediately makes Marquinhos feel uncomfortable. You know, there's that one he almost gets on the end of, isn't there, with where he kind of kicks into Donnarumma and Donnarumma's not happy about it. But that immediately shows just having someone who's strong and quick up there and tall, what that can do for you. And then around the goal, it is, you know, it's a hit and hope. It's a great pass, I guess, from Alisson. It's in the right spot, but you know, it takes a lot of work to turn that into something. But he does. He gets his shoulder into Marquinhos. Marquinhos can't get a clear header, and then it comes down, and you can kind of play from there. And that's what it's all about. And it just reminded me of kind of Liverpool's failure to clear the lines against Everton, for example. There's not a lot you can do when the player you're up against is bigger and stronger than you, and Darwin just caused that problem. And then what he did from there, which is the thing, you know, you're not used to seeing from him, is control, composure, getting the ball, not just cracking a shot away, but seeing that pass was on and Harvey Elliott busting along to get there, and then perfect weight on it for him to run onto it and finish. So absolutely fantastic from Nunes to do that. Smart to bring him on, and I think it made Liverpool a much better team when he was on the pitch. And again, let's see more of these moments between now and the end of the season, if that is going to be, as we expect, the end of his Liverpool career.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of credit for that last night. And the two midfielders, it's important to mention them that came on in different ways. Endo just for the physicality and the ability to close things down, win challenges. Curtis Jones, almost when he came on, it was like, hold on, we can actually keep the ball for more than 3 passes as well. They made a big difference in that period.
Yeah, I wonder whether Jones in particular kind of made Slot think, I wish I'd gone with the setup against City, because again, that seemed like a possibility, didn't it, that he would do that. So I wonder if he'd wished that he'd done that, really, because it kind of, it's hard to say because it was obviously a good sub and it worked, but also were PSG tiring a little bit as well. So that kind of allowed Liverpool to get a bit more of a foothold. It's kind of hard and you don't want to go too far in on the narratives, but he definitely brought more control. And I thought it's interesting, Endo and Jones, between them, I think they make 18 pass attempts and complete 17 of them. So they're keeping the ball. They're allowing Liverpool to have a little bit of possession, which they were really struggling for in the game. And then they get stuck in and they win the challenges. And, Jones in there winning around 50% of his duels. I think Endo, a couple of great blocks and moments like that. So making, being combative in there, which PSG had been, and keeping possession, which PSG had done prior to that. So it just gave Liverpool a little bit more of a foothold. And, it's no coincidence that, Endo at the end makes a big block to stop a low ball coming in that could have caused havoc. Curtis Jones scrapping to get the ball leads to the throw in that leads to the goal. That's what you want. You want that fight in there. And, all these substitution appearances and their contribution, I wonder, Jones in particular, I guess, has it given Slot a little bit of food for thought around the second leg, really, about what his lineup will look like and how he kind of sets things up. I do wonder about that. But I thought, in terms of all them substitutes, brilliant from them to make such a big contribution coming off the bench, but also brilliant from Slot to identify that was exactly what he needed to turn the game in Liverpool's favour.
Yeah, you've got to give credit to all parties. Seth F there saying, Harvey timed his run perfectly. Both Harvey and Darwin slowed it down when everyone else was speeding their passes up. Yeah, who'd have thought, Seth, Darwin, Nunes would be the epitome of calm in the right moment as well. But there they are. And the only other sort of big thing that I wanted to talk about, TNT, I'm sure you heard, we're just waxing lyrical about this, about how Konate was himself guilty of this Paris heist and it should have been a red card, literally. Even when the VAR call that was delayed, you just started to wonder, did you see anything in this in terms of, was it a barge, shoulder to shoulder? How did you see it?
Yeah, I mean, me, I kind of, I try not to have the kind of red tinted specs on when talking about decisions, but I genuinely mean this. I was quite surprised that the commentators, which was obviously Rio Ferdinand and Ali McCoy, was so convinced that this was a red card. I kind of watched it and I thought, he's taking a little bit of a risk there, but it's shoulder, Barcola slows up, the ball's bouncing. It's a little bit of a kind of overly physical coming together, but I didn't think there was absolutely loads in it. So I was surprised they were so kind of clear cut about it. I think what I can say is that if it'd been given on the field, I don't think you get an overturn, but I also think it's short of the kind of bar for an overturn because Konate doesn't extend his arm. There's no kind of real push motion. He's trying to get a shoulder around, isn't he? It's a little bit clumsy. I wouldn't like to see him try that one again, to be honest. But I didn't by any means think it was kind of, wow, 100% red card. Can't believe that they've not overturned it. But they seemed really convinced about it, which, as I say, kind of surprised me a little bit, to be honest. But for me, it was just kind of one of those that's maybe on the line, and you're basically quite reliant on what the referee's call is going to be in that situation. And fortunately for Liverpool, it went in their favour, but quite a lot did throughout the game, to be honest.
Yeah, it does seem luck has been in Liverpool's favour a bit this season, but they make your own luck, as we say, and Liverpool go into this tie, the second leg coming up, with a 1-goal advantage. And I mentioned luck on this. Carabao this tie, you've probably clocked it, David, that Anthony Gordon already suspended for the final. Lewis Hall now, the injury, so that's the entire left side gone. And Sven Botman, even last night, was revealed he's got surgery. I mean, I don't know if the gods are for us or we've just done a deal with the devil, but there's a few things maybe going in our favour, it's fair to say, off the field at the moment.
Yes, it's unbelievable, really. I mean, you think back to the Haaland and Isak missing games and then, just missing one game and it only being Liverpool. And then, there's been a few situations throughout the season where things have kind of gone for Liverpool. I mean, Arsenal's injury crisis, albeit I still think Liverpool would have had a really, really, really good chance of winning the title regardless. But, that happening. City, the timing of their collapse, which has probably been in the post for a while, but it's happened this season where to give Liverpool kind of a clear run. And then obviously, going into this kind of Carabao Cup final and Newcastle's best players are dropping like flies. And I thought Lewis Hall was really, really good against Salah the other day. So that's a big, big miss for them and a real shame that he's not going to be able to play at Wembley. I mean, the Gordon one again, we spoke about that. I still am in absolute disbelief about that. I cannot believe he did that with the cup final on the horizon. Just incredibly daft, and a shame for him as well. So these things are kind of totting up, and now obviously Botman needs surgery. So it's all kind of going for Liverpool, isn't it? And they still have to go there and take advantage of it, because I remember we talked before the Villa game about the injuries they had in defence, and Liverpool didn't do enough to punish that. So, it doesn't mean that the game's a gimme, but it definitely helps for the Newcastle won't have the strongest 11 on the pitch, albeit, you wonder, does that set them up in terms of it gives them a clear path to victory, which is that they've got to sit in, make the game ugly as they can and try and just nick something. Maybe that makes it more straightforward for them. But it's got to help Liverpool a little bit that some of these quality players are missing out. And I do think actually for Newcastle, just a little tangent on that, whether they sort of start to have to ask questions as well about Eddie Howe and his style of play and whether that is causing some of these injuries, because this will be back-to-back seasons really where they've had terrible issues and it is an intense style of football they play. So you just wonder whether they could do with turning that down a little bit, because it really is stacking up now.
Yeah, it does seem to look in our favour, but we'll see what a week or so brings before that final. And off the pitch as well, I know you wrote about this, a couple wanted to talk about. Alisson, we kind of alluded to this last week, and obviously last night, arguably, as we said, the best performance we've ever seen. But it is fair to say, and I know you've written about it today on your Substack, there is still a question about the summer and the future and what might happen overall, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I had a little bit of stick for writing this today, kind of seeing it as a negative, but I just think he's a really interesting story to look at the moment, because it so much is up in the air about what happens with Alisson. Yeah. I mean, it was he obviously decided quite early last summer that he wasn't going to make the move to Saudi, but just because it was off the table last summer doesn't mean that is something that's off the table completely. And I think it was very much, sign up for another year. Let's see what happens. We'll keep Claudio Taffarel around for you and kind of go from there. And obviously it's going really well and he's played well, but there's a lot of external factors. What does Saudi come back to him with this summer? What kind of money are they offering? Is he at that point kind of ready to go, particularly if he wins another Premier League, which looks almost a certainty, and hopefully a Champions League we'll see with that. Will he feel that is a natural point to kind of bookend his Anfield career? So, the players' wishes kind of come into it there. Do you know Mamadashvili is coming? So there's, that there's going to be that competition. There's a few things up in the air, and I know people have mentioned he's kind of said in an interview relatively recently, hasn't he, that he's happy and he wants to stay. And I don't for a second doubt that. I know from myself and speaking to people close to the player, he's very, very happy at Liverpool. But, it's just the timing and whether that offer of a new challenge or, huge money in Saudi, let's be right, whether he might just think it's the right time to go. So it's just not that clear cut at the moment. And I just thought it was an interesting one to kind of explore, really.
Yeah, it does feel again like one of those players that's within that 2 year or less bracket. There's a lot of questions to be asked. And let's be honest, if there will be people sniffing around Alisson Becker because he's the best goalie in the world. So it will come down to the players' wishes. We'll have to see on this one. And the reason that I wanted to ask you about Endo as well, I mean, we talked about him before, maybe a surprise face put up for the press conference by Liverpool just before the game as well. He was quite honest and he was asked a few questions about it, saying, I've had quite a few conversations with the manager, not always been happy about it. Was there anything that you took from that you're probably thinking, as much as we got the idea that he would be great for staying around and playing 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe in lesser games, that actually, from what he said there, maybe leaning towards a summer departure at all?
Well, this is it. It's kind of a big factor in this that people overlook. Is, you see comments quite a lot. Oh, you got to keep Endo around. He's so useful. He's a great member of the squad and a great character, and all that is true. I mean, he's been phenomenal this season when called upon, and showed great character as well, coming back from a kind of difficult situation. But the huge question is he happy? Excuse me, is he happy with that going forward? Does he not want to play more and particularly get a couple of winners' medals this season, hopefully? Again, like Alisson, will he not just see that as a good moment to maybe move on and try something elsewhere, particularly somewhere where he will play more frequently? So that's the decision he's got to make. And I think he showed in that press conference with what he said, that he isn't just content with this. It's not just, I want to be around while trophies are being won and I play a very, very small part. I think he wants a little bit more. So, I still think he is a big candidate for when the summer comes around, maybe moving on. And, that'll have been 2 years at Anfield with a few winners' medals. Hopefully, it might just be the perfect time. So, and I think that would kind of make sense for everyone as well, because it would open up the possibility of Liverpool bringing in another midfielder who is a little bit more to the manager's taste. So, that still to me looks the likeliest outcome, to be honest. And I think he kind of quietly confirmed that really in the way he spoke.
Still seems crazy that there's a logical explanation. There's possible multiple exits on the horizon, yet they could do it with Liverpool winning expected a title and maybe even more as well. But such is the nature of everything going on at the moment. And I suppose a little bit wider afield as well. This one we talked about, Alexander Isak. Now, I know we said, and you always said, don't get your hopes up, don't get excited. I don't think David Ornstein got your script, to be honest, because that was on a pod where he actually said, wasn't it? And to quote David Ornstein, when he was asked about Liverpool, they have multiple options on their radar, but the only name I've personally heard of so far is Alexander Isak. Liverpool aren't alone in liking the Swede. They'll only move for him, though, if he's genuinely available. Is it the last bit for you that's kind of probably the key thing? Just still expect him not to be available, because David Ornstein's just thrown petrol on this bonfire.
Yeah, I just think so much has got to, there's no question is there whatsoever. And we've said this multiple times that Liverpool like him. Obviously they do. He's one of the best strikers in the world. He's 25. He's probably going to get better. He's got a Premier League experience. It'd be mad if they didn't like him. But I'm just, it's so far away from this happening, and I think so many things have got to come together. But I like I said, I just don't think anybody should be thinking, well, if you don't go and get him, it's a lack of ambition or yada yada, or it's so far away from anything happening with that. Because I think Newcastle have got to be willing to sell him, which they could by all rights just say, give us 1 more year and then you'll be 2 years out. That's the point at which we sit down and talk. Even if they did say this summer, maybe we could be tempted, it would be at maybe 150 million, which is an awful lot of your summer budget to commit to one player, particularly if, say, he comes in and suddenly his muscle injuries start up again. That would be really painful if that happened. So, and then it's so I think it'd be a great move for him. I think he'd fit right in. I think he'd be really good. And I think Liverpool, if they sensed there was an opportunity, would go for it. But that's just such a long way away to all those things coming together and Liverpool deciding that they want to commit that amount of funds to him. So, like I said, I just wouldn't get too excited about that just yet. And I think there are so many other strikers out there that Liverpool could take a look at and will take a look at, many of whom we wouldn't even think of off the top of our heads. So, like I say, I wouldn't be looking at this and thinking Liverpool 100% going for Isak next summer. I just would not be surprised at all if he remains at Newcastle in the end.
Yeah, there's a cynical part of me, without being disrespectful, maybe thinks David Ornstein knew what all the hype's been around and what the talk when he was asked about this and referring. But we will see what develops this summer. And there's names continuously linked with Liverpool at the moment. So I did just want to sort of float a few your way. Lamine Camara, the Monaco midfielder, Senegal international. This name has actually, come up quite a few journalists, different continents, different countries linked him. Heard anything on this player at all?
To be honest, no. Haven't heard anything that makes me think he's necessarily hugely on the radar. I mean, they'll be watching him. I don't question that, because he's obviously 21 years old, playing in a top 5 European league and doing okay. but that's a long way away from Liverpool looking at him. And I believe he's kind of an attacking midfielder, isn't he? So, again, it's not like they're really short in that position at the moment, and or that he's performing at such a level that he would instantly transform your team. I'm not quite sure that that's the case. So, like I say, I've not heard anything on him, and they will be keeping an eye on him. But I don't think that's anything you should be thinking, yeah, he's definitely one they're going to move for in the summer or anything like that. I think we're a long way from that.
Yeah, there are a lot of names floating around, and I'm probably going to butcher these. I'm going to have a go at them. There's one called, I think it's Konstantinos Kouliakos at Wolfsburg, a defender, and then the other one, which Lewis Steele mentioned in the Daily Mail, that there seems to be rumours in Belgium were interested in. I think it's pronounced Joel Ordoins. I'm probably butchering that one as well, but Colombian centre-back for Bruges. Anything around those, or again, is it just feeling a bit like names out there at this stage and rumours?
These two make a lot more sense to me. I know Joel Ordóñez at Bruges, definitely one who they're kind of keeping an eye on. And I think, they're both kind of young centre-halves, aren't they? And I think this is a market Liverpool are definitely going to shop in this summer. That spot is going to open up with Joe Gomez leaving. And so I think there's space for a young centre-half. Obviously, Jarell Hato fits that bill as well. So, that's a name that really makes sense in that role as well. So I think they've given themselves a few kind of options in that area. They're all kind of early 20s centre halves, who you would be comfortable bringing in as kind of your fourth choice there, and then easing them in and them getting better and better under your watch. So that would certainly be the plan. So these names definitely make a lot more sense to me. And that's something to kind of keep an eye on, really, is what Liverpool do in that centre half position, because there's definitely going to be a vacancy. We know for a long time they've been monitoring young centre half. So I think this is the summer where they're going to finally pull the trigger. So all those kind of names you pop up, I would, what's the opposite of taking with the result? I would absolutely believe that there's something in that, really.
Yeah, it would make sense. You'd be astonished if there's not a player that can play centre half, even if it's a couple of positions coming in this summer. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on those types of rumours. And this one at the weekend, I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful too much, but when you look at that Premier League table and you think we've just had a really tough game in Paris, you would pick the team with only 9 points at home, wouldn't you, in all honesty?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. You don't want to kind of be disrespectful at all or kind of take anything for granted, but I don't know how you're supposed to look at this game in any other way. The best side in the Premier League by a long distance against the worst Premier League side potentially in history if they don't pick up any more points. So, and it's at Anfield as well. You just like to think that Liverpool are going to kind of wipe the floor with them, really. And, I know they gave Liverpool a bit of a game earlier in the season, but I think the confidence has taken a huge battering since then. And the Anfield factor, and Liverpool are an even better side than they were early in the season. So, really, really difficult to see this going any other way than a home win and a comfortable afternoon. And the upside there is that if you can make it as comfortable as possible, it's not taking too much out of you in the build-up to that second leg against PSG. Yeah,
it does seem the nice filler between that first and second leg. And I mean, you're right, 9 points, ship 65, 2 4-0 defeats back-to-back, so confidence feels on the floor. Even as I'm saying that, a lot of people, and you'll have seen it, this clamour for Nunes did well last night, put him in. Elliott did well last night. If he's not going to start against Southampton, when's he going to start? Endo, all these rotations. Arne Slot history or his record, or based on the facts of what we can see, he's probably going to be like 1 or 2, you fancy, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd be really surprised to see any rotation, really. I mean, wouldn't be hugely shocked to see a Darwin start just on the basis that he's been comfortable making that change from time to time, and similarly kind of Kostas Tsimikas at left back maybe, but outside of that, it would probably go with the strongest 11, and I think his thinking will be there. Can we get this wrapped up, give Harvey Elliott the last half hour, maybe even see Federico Chiesa, who knows, if he's allowed out of the cell he's locked in, and maybe Endo to help see it out as well. But we just know by now, don't we? This is not a manager who rotates. And maybe that will, like I said earlier when we talked about Harvey, really, maybe that will change coming into next season, because, he'll have a better idea of what the job is and we'll know where he's more comfortable rotating. But I don't expect it this season. I think he'll be keen to just get this Premier League title wrapped up as quickly as humanly possible, really.
Yeah, with only one Premier League game this month, it's difficult to imagine anything different at all. And the final bit, it almost takes you a little bit back to the start and what we talked about. I know you'll have clocked the tweet by Dougie Critchley from Sky Sports, European Scout, and various bits. And people have had strong opinions on this, where he said today along the lines of, Liverpool fans should be concerned by what happened last night, being outplayed, various things. And others have responded with an essence of, well, isn't this what Real Madrid did? And isn't like the fact we can win in various ways and play badly like Mourinho's did, isn't that a factor? I mean, surely that's just almost done for a little bit of traction, shall we say, without wanting to be disrespectful. There's nothing too negative about last night overall, is there?
No. I mean, I think that's absolutely... I think that's just nonsense, really. And I get the point, generally speaking, in terms of performances are everything, because on that basis is, if you win the first couple of games of a season playing poorly, it's going to get you. It's going to catch up with you. You are going to get caught out by that at some point. But, I mean, this is possibly like the hardest away game you could conceive of in football at the moment. The way PSG are playing, they haven't lost a game since November. So even Real Madrid are losing more frequently and more regularly than that. So, like I say, possibly the hardest away game in all European football at the moment. And Liverpool, got completely taken apart in that first half. But they got away with it, and then much better in terms of controlling PSG in the second half, and they won it. They managed to hang in and win the game in the end, which I just think that shows incredible resilience. They used the luck they got in the first half. And then, like I say, incredible resilience. And then the moment of quality when it came about. And the fact is, I think people are going to be really surprised. It kind of shocks me, really. I think people have forgotten how hard like European away ties are supposed to be. Yeah. And that you can go away from home and get absolutely played off the park. That is absolutely, capable, a possibility. And the whole idea is to just hang in there, really, and see how low you can keep the score and then beat them at your place. And I think people are going to get a little bit of a wake-up call, because I think people now expect that PSG are going to come to Anfield and play the same way, and Liverpool are going to have to play better. Well, they will play better. I can almost guarantee it. I mean, maybe I'm going to make myself look a fool, but I'm almost certain Liverpool will dominate the game at Anfield, because home advantage is absolutely massive. And PSG are not going to be able to take the same risks. They're not going to be able to run over Liverpool in the same way. And I think we'll see a worse version of PSG at Anfield and a better version of Liverpool. And you combine those two things, and I think Liverpool will win the game and go through in the end. So I think people are reading a little bit too much into it. And I also don't think what he's saying there gives credit maybe to the fact that the second half was a little bit different. It wasn't the same kind of dominance. So, the fact Liverpool hung in there and then won it in the end, and they're probably not going to have a tougher game than that in the rest of their European campaign this season. That bodes terribly for everybody else who's going to try and beat them to the Champions League trophy, I would say.
Yeah, I generally think, and we've seen a lot of good sides come to Anfield this season as well, not forgetting Real Madrid. PSG were the best side we faced last season. Just that energy, pace, enthusiasm. And maybe part of it's because it's in the Parc des Princes. But yeah, it was a big test. And even now, I'm still trying not to laugh. We won 1-0, even with all that and the stats. So there is so much to be positive about. No two ways about it. There we are, ladies and gents. Turns out you can actually get battered all throughout Paris and still take a 1-0 victory away. It turns out we've got officially the worst team in the Premier League this Saturday. Let's hope it's a routine 3-point and a rest up for the second leg. Although with Liverpool, we always know there can be a little bit of something, so we'll have to see what the weekend brings. All it leaves me to say as ever is, David, for the time, the insight, and answering all those questions, it is much appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield Index.